So, question number 3. I gotta ask, what was the inspiration of bringing Jimmy Lyle into your writings? Wallace writes, I am a knife enthusiast. Not an expert, just an enthusiast. What Lyle created for the movie is a piece of art, and I have a lot of respect for his memory. As do I, Wallace, as do I. Wallace continues, the reason he got up in my tales because I write for the most, following a Stephen King teaching that says, writing is mostly a matter of asking yourself the right questions. And the right question is always the same. What is this? What is that? The more you say the truth, this and that, the better your writings will be. Everything else doesn't matter. In my mind, Rambo meeting Jimmy Lyle is the only possible explanation for Rambo to have such an unusual knife. So that's it. By the way, there is one more thing I have to admit. Until you, Matt, didn't make me notice, I didn't realize how unusual and ultra cool this paradox idea was. So thank you. You know what, Wallace? Thank you, man, because like you said, this is an amazing paradox, you know? It's an amazing... one of the great things about Rambo is that there are so many paradoxes. There's a paradox almost everywhere, you know? And that thing you said about always telling the truth in your writing, that is something I find now that a lot of people don't have, you know? I go see all these movies written from screenplays, you know, that aren't true, that aren't just, you know, that don't really capture the realness and the essence of the source material it's coming from. For example, First Blood, I really thought that was more of a true film. Like, the violence in that, or the actions that Rambo portrays, I thought were more viable to be done. You know, like jumping off the cliff, sewing up his arm, jumping on the truck. You know, like, just all these amazing stunts and feats. It's much more real, especially, you know, when you go back in those days. That was real stunts, man. Today we have CGI. I find that the CGI element really takes everything out of it for me. Even like Expendables 3, the CGI, when Stallone jumps off the building from the helicopter, that kind of took me out of the movie. But it's going back and watching all those real stunts, you know, like truthful wise, you know, like when Stallone was talking in that interview from the Expendables premiere, where he's saying, you know, probably one of my favorite stunts was riding the horse during the Bugatti scene from Rambo 3, and from the riding away from the helicopter that was coming down just overhead. You know, there's just something about those stunts that, if you stay true, is a lot more viable for what you're doing. So, excellent, excellent, excellent. Excellent, and thank you very much for the very kind words, Wallace. So, yeah, definitely, be true to what you're writing, do your research, know what you're talking about, and that's what Wallace does best. So, number 4. Question number 4. I know you get very involved in the research behind your work. What went into your research on the Lyle and his knives for your short story? Are there any stories you can share with us regarding doing the research for this marvelous piece? Wallace writes, doing the first year of research regarding the Mac VSOG Special Forces, I discovered the Randall 18 knife. A knife so similar to Rambo's knife, and really used during the Vietnam War, that I was surprised no one ever talked about its legacy with the Rambo, in its legacy regarding the Rambo myth or mythos. So my Baker team uses a modified version of the Randall 18, which is almost identical to the one from the first movie, to the knife from the first movie. Near the end of my first book, I understood that I was going to cover all the Rambo saga with at least another 1 or even 2 books. I wanted to make myself a present to celebrate my first Rambo book and the decision to make it become a saga. I wanted a real first blood knife, but an official licensed replica was not enough because of the eye-catching differences all of the official replicas have with the one used in the first movie. So I made a deal with an Italian knife smith by hand making a knife only using photos from the internet. It was very difficult. So me and the Italian knife smith made a lot of research and downloaded a lot of photos from the internet. It took us 1 month to decide how to do it, and that's how I came up to find the real meaning that Jimmy Lyle gave to his first blood knife. So, So, if you think you have just discovered something extra cool the world doesn't know about, it will probably show up later in your writing ideas. Awesome. And that's really cool. It's like really cool that you actually got with a knife smith to do this. And I can only imagine that must have played into the psyche. It must play into the psyche of, making the knife, having everything made, doing all these, doing all these amazing things. Getting the ideas for what you need to write. And, seeing the knife being made in person, that must be insane. That must be wonderful. So question number 5. I love the title you came up with. It works on so many levels. How did you come up with it for use? Was it a play on the satire element, etc.? Possibly a sarcastic thing? I love it because it plays on those old adages of a guy walks into a bar and it's great and it has like a wonderful appeal to the audience and readers of your works. It feels like very personal to the reader type of title. Wallace writes, the idea for the title came from this image stuck in my mind of a knife in its sheath over a desk in a bar. If it wasn't a short tale but a full book, this image would surely be its cover. Anyway, a guy walks into a bar and is a U.S. phrase, not so much used in Italy. I am happy it sounds so good, but I frankly admit that this was not planned. It was too pure luck. In Italian language, the title sounds more like a Lyle knife inside an English pub, with no reference at all to any famous or funny phrases. So yes, sometimes writers get lucky too. Very interesting, Wallace. And I wondered how this would have stemmed out if it was a longer tale. Going back and reading First Blood Part 2, for example, by David Morrell, finding out things like Rambo had a fiance in America, and in Arizona, or where he was from, and coming back, and she had moved on, and she had kids, and she was disgusted by him, and everybody was calling him a rapist, and Rambo has this real paradox that he can't get close to anyone, especially intimately. Having any kind of friendship with anyone is so hard, especially when your friends there 1 minute and the next minute his insides are all over you, right? So wow, it would be cool to see this as a full-length book too. It's great as a short story, but imagine a full-length too if you added those little elements of Rambo's return to America. Yeah, it's a great work, and it's a great title, A Lyle Knife in a Bar. So, question number 6. Do you think Lyle will reappear in the universe you have created at a later time? Wallace writes, I'm not sure, but I don't think he will ever do. If you have noticed, my story happens just a few days before the First Blood events take place, And after those events, Rambo's life takes a very bad route. He goes to jail for years and gets out only to run a highly classified black operation. Then he is freed, but so disgusted from USA that he goes to live in foreign lands for the following 20 years. In this scenario, it's highly unlikely that Jimmy Lyle will ever meet him again. I also like the idea of Lyle and Rambo being absolutely unknown to each other and meeting only by chance, with Lyle immediately understanding how unique this kid is. And from a pure writing point of view, the short tale is very good the way it is. And writers are always scared about pushing the luck too much. I agree with you there. It's always like that cat and mouse game of, do I do it this way? Do I do it that way? Kind of thing. But I really love the chemistry between Rambo and Lyle in this short. I think it's very, very gracious and very eloquent style to the writing between the two characters. Definitely. Okay. And I like the paradox here too, because the paradox, there's a really interesting paradox here where from the book to the movie. Like First Blood, Wallace's version here is a play more on First Blood the movie, and the book First Blood has this alternate paradox where Rambo has a different form of the aviator knife, where he's actually killed people with it. Actually, no, wait, I'm wrong. I am completely wrong. Hold on a second here. In the First Blood book, I think it's Rambo's sleeping in a park by the water, and someone comes up to him and tries to mug him, and the guy has a knife, and there's two guys, and one of the guy has a knife, and he goes to stab Rambo. Rambo kills him, takes the knife, hunts down the other guy, and slices his throat, I think. Or it might be one guy. Man, I should go back and read that one again. Read the beginning of that again. Actually, I'll just go back and listen to my review of First Blood by David Morrell. I'm pretty sure, though, yeah, I don't think Rambo has the knife at all in the book. He gets a different form of knife later on, a different hunting knife. So absolutely. Okay, cool. So Wallace's paradox is interesting because it's more movie based, and it actually makes sense of why Rambo would be carrying around this. The only other thing I can think of to explain it would be a memento from the war and coming back. But if Rambo was captured in Vietnam and had to go through all the shit that he did, and then was put in the hospital, and then got out of the hospital, why would Rambo have a knife? So the Lyle fits perfectly into the balancing of this mythos. Sorry for that screw up, guys. Alright.